Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, the Republic of Kosovo has officially opened an embassy in Jerusalem, becoming the first European as well as Muslim-majority country to open a full diplomatic mission in the capital of Israel. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan reveals the diplomatic efforts between the United States and Iran are ongoing, but not via direct talks. The United Arab Emirates announces its intention to establish a $10 billion investment fund focused on strategic sectors in Israel. The Republic of Kosovo has officially opened an embassy in Jerusalem, becoming the first European as well as Muslim-majority country to open a full diplomatic mission in the capital of Israel. Less than a week after the Czech Republic opened an embassy office in the city, the partially recognized state of Kosovo moved to implement a clause of an economic agreement, which the outgoing Pristina government signed with the former U.S. administration when then-President Donald Trump hosted outgoing Kosovan Prime Minister Avdullah Hoti and Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić for a trilateral signing ceremony at the White House last September. And regardless of a warning voiced at the time by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan over potential consequences for Pristina if it were to follow through on its signed pledge to open a diplomatic mission in Jerusalem, Kosovo's Prime Minister-designate Albin Kurti acknowledged that the decision was made after a thorough review of the agreement signed in Washington, which apparently tied the Jerusalem embassy clause to profound economic incentives. Meanwhile, Israeli President Reuven Rivlin is set to embark on a 3-day European trip tomorrow morning. The Israeli head of state will initially travel to Berlin for a meeting with his German counterpart, President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, after which he will travel to Vienna on Wednesday for a meeting with Austrian President Alexander von der Bellen, and then onward to Paris, where he is scheduled to hold a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. According to the presidential residence in Jerusalem, the purpose of the trip will focus on highlighting the political nature of a decision by the International Criminal Court in The Hague to probe Israel for alleged war crimes which the Palestinians claim were committed in the Gaza Strip and West Bank, including in East Jerusalem. The respective meetings will also focus on the threat posed by the Islamic Republic of Iran, including its nuclear program and its support for internationally recognized terror organizations, including first and foremost its Lebanese proxy Hezbollah. It is important to note that IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Aviv Kochavi will join President Reuven Rivlin for the upcoming 3-day trip. In other yet related news, a spokesperson for Iran's state cargo company, Irisil, announced over the weekend that an Iranian cargo vessel was targeted in a, quote, terror attack in the Mediterranean Sea last Wednesday. The freighter was apparently damaged by an explosive device that had been fixed to the side of the ship, consequently sparking a blaze. While no injuries were immediately reported, an Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson asserted that the Islamic Republic will take the necessary steps to find out who was behind this attack. It is worth mentioning that an Iranian investigator was quoted by Iranian state media as saying, considering the location and the manner in which the ship was attacked, one of the most obvious possibilities is that this terror attack was carried out by the Zionist entity. Nevertheless, Israel did not confirm nor deny its alleged responsibility, merely several days after the American-based Wall Street Journal published a report claiming Israel had attacked at least 12 Iranian vessels headed for Syria in 2019, most of which had been carrying either oil or munitions. Meanwhile, in Washington, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan revealed over the weekend that diplomatic efforts between the United States and Iran were continuing apace, but not via direct talks.
Diplomacy with Iran is ongoing, just not in a direct fashion at the moment. There are communications through the Europeans and through others that enable us to explain to the Iranians what our position is with respect to the compliance for compliance approach and to hear what their position is. And we're waiting at this point to hear further from the Iranians how they would like to proceed. But from our perspective, this is going to be, this is not going to be easy, but we believe that we are in a diplomatic process now that we can move forward on and ultimately secure our objective, which is to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon and to do so through diplomacy.
When asked whether the Biden administration intends to respond to attacks on U.S.-led coalition forces in Iraq, which occurred some 2 weeks ago by Iranian-backed militias, and whether a lack of action demonstrates Washington's weakness versus the Ayatollah regime in Tehran, Sullivan asserted the following.
The United States reserves the right to protect its personnel and its facilities. We will do so at a time and place of our choosing, and we will take whatever steps are necessary to deter further attacks and to impose costs on those who attack us. But I'm not going to telegraph our punches on any particular operation that we may take in the days or weeks ahead.
Following the remarks made by the U.S. National Security Advisor, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards released footage on regime-owned television purporting to show a new underground base supplied with cruise and ballistic missiles, as well as electronic warfare equipment. According to IRGC Chief Major General Hossein Salami, the facility belongs to his organization's naval force, apparently intended to deter the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet.
آنچه که امروز ملاحظه می‌کنیم بخش کوچکی از توان بزرگ و وسیع موشکی نیروی دریایی سپاه پاسداران انقلاب اسلامی است.
Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif complained about Washington's demand to renegotiate the 2015 nuclear agreement by additionally addressing the broad range of Tehran's malign behavior, claiming the Biden administration was perpetuating the policies of the previous Trump administration.
So why are they talking about renegotiating? Why are they talking about adjusting? Why are they talking about issues that we already dealt with in this state? And Iran paid the price for it. So they need to abandon that policy. If there is a new situation, then we need to see action from the United States. Up until now, this administration has done nothing different from the Trump administration.
Minister Zarif, who made these remarks in a Q&A session with the Brussels-based European Policy Center, leveled a vague threat to the United States, stressing that once presidential elections scheduled for June commence in Iran, the diplomatic window of opportunity will close.
Once we go into our election, it will be a lame duck government. And a lame duck government will not be able to do anything serious. And then we will have a waiting period of almost 6 months. We will not have a new government before September. A lot of things can happen between now and September. So it is advisable for the United States to move fast. And moving fast only requires them not to be shy, just to take the measures that they need to take.
The Ayatollah regime's top diplomat went on to reiterate Tehran's parameters for diplomacy.
We maintain this room, so we don't need to use back channels again. We have a room, we established the room, we established its parameters, we established its rules. The United States simply needs to buy the ticket to come back to the room, that's all.
In other news, the United Arab Emirates announced its intention to establish a $10 billion investment fund focused on strategic sectors in Israel. The announcement, which was made over the weekend, followed a telephone conversation between Emirati Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Emirati fund aims to invest in a variety of Israeli sectors, including in energy, water, space research, health, and agri-tech. It will support development and collaboration projects between the two countries. Thank you for watching us. As part of TV7 Israel's prayer initiative, I would like to encourage you today to join myself and the team here in Jerusalem to lift up Lebanon once more in prayer for its salvation and peace, alongside prayers for our persecuted brothers and sisters around the world, In addition to our ongoing prayers, of course, for the peace of Jerusalem, the salvation of Israel, for all those who are impacted by the numerous ramifications of the corona crisis worldwide. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all of you who partner with TV7 Israel, as your financial contributions as well as your prayers are a crucial ingredient for our ongoing operations. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you a Shavua Tov U'Mevorach, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.